They took his land and gave him a medal. The truth Canada tries to bury. An Indigenous veteran of the First World War returns home to Canada from fighting overseas, only to discover that his land has been stolen and that he has no rights to it. But one quiet act of remembrance may rewrite his legacy. He left his reserve in Quebec to enlist in the Canadian Armed Forces and served with the 20th Battalion, seeing action at Ypres, the Somme, and Vimy Ridge. Now, decorated with medals for his service, including the Military Medal for Bravery and a mention in dispatches, he is ready to return home to the reserve. It's 1919, and after 4 years of fighting in some of the most brutal battles of the First World War, Abenaki First Nation veteran Francis Pitaway is finally coming home. As it turns out, while Francis was away fighting for his country, the Canadian government had passed a law which stripped Indigenous peoples of their land rights and gave non-Indigenous Canadians like Delage the right to take Indigenous lands for their own use, except when he arrives. He finds that his house has been burned down, and his land is occupied by a white settler named Joseph Delage. They threaten to arrest the curator and pressure the media not to cover the story. It is a huge success, and people from all over Canada come to see it. He is remembered not just as a victim of injustice, but as a hero who fought for his country and for his people. The government's attempts to cover up the truth of Francis's story only make it more important. But Diane is undeterred. She knows that her grandfather deserves to be honored and that his story needs to be told. Francis fights back, appealing to the courts, but the Canadian justice system lets him down, ruling that the government had the right to take his land because as a First Nations person, he doesn't have the same rights as white Canadians. It's a devastating blow, and Francis is eventually forced to leave the only home he has ever known. When she hears about the residential schools that were set up by the Canadian government to forcibly assimilate Indigenous children into white culture, she starts to put the pieces together. She realizes that her grandfather never really recovered from what happened to him, and she learns that he passed away, believing that he had no living relatives and that he was unloved. But his story isn't over yet. Decades later, in 1970, Francis's granddaughter, Diane, is attending university. Through the exhibition, Diane hopes to fulfill her grandfather's dream of having his own land back. Determined to uncover the truth of her grandfather's story, Diane works with a local museum to put on an exhibition about Francis and other Indigenous veterans of the First World War. But when the government learns about the exhibition, they try to stop it. With the support of her family and the community, Diane goes ahead with the exhibition. In the end, the exhibition helps to rewrite Francis's legacy. That's all for today. See you next time.